Hello, I'm Jake Boudreau, civic journalist at Tell Community Television. This week, on the record, a Richmond County man was charged for what the RCMP is calling a road rage incident. The RCMP said a vehicle and garage in Inverness County were damaged by a firearm. The Seniors Take Action Coalition of Richmond County held its annual general meeting in Louisdale on September 15th. After the meeting, I spoke with guest speaker Dr. Alison Grittner and Seniors Take Action Coalition Community Outreach Coordinator Celeste Gotel. The provincial government announced that more Nova Scotians can get RSV vaccines. But first, the Clean Energy Transition held a public information session at the Louisdale Lions Club on September 15th. And before the public consultation, I spoke with representatives of the Department of Energy and Net Zero Atlantic, as well as the MLA for Richmond and Energy Minister Trevor Boudreau. So I'm here with Sarah Ballack, who is with the Net Zero Atlantic, and you were part of a series of clean energy transition public engagement sessions, including this one here tonight at the Louisdale Lions Club. So maybe you can explain the role of Net Zero Atlantic in this whole process.
Yeah, so for the clean energy conversations, we're collaborating with the Department of Energy to bring these interactive open houses all around the province so that people have an opportunity to learn about the clean energy transition, learn about the plans, and ask their questions in an open forum.
Now, it's quite general. You're talking about the clean energy transition. There's a lot of moving parts of that transition. So I assume you guys are trying not to bog anyone down with too much information, but at the same time, provide that information that they need.
Yeah. So there is a lot of information out there, and that's can definitely be overwhelming at times. So we're trying to create an opportunity where the information is clear and available. People can ask their questions, but there's also opportunities. We have takeaways here, so people can kind of take things with them and continue their learning, and kind of go at the pace that they'd like to go at and ask the questions they'd like to ask.
And we're talking about the gamut. We're talking about industrial use, we're talking about commercial use, we're talking about residential use type of things, and whatever people are interested in.
With the clean energy conversations, we're talking mostly about high level. So looking at the overall plans, so looking forward to 2030, how we'll shift away from coal into clean energy uses, and even beyond that, looking at things like offshore wind and green hydrogen. So kind of those bigger conversations about what our clean energy future might look like.
And it was noted that the open house style sessions are designed to allow for individual discussions and learning to focus on building energy literacy and sharing information about the province's transition energy, which is what essentially you alluded to. So how are they set up to allow this? Let's see, there's booths and displays, and basically people can come to whatever booth they want and ask whoever type of thing. So it's kind of an open concept where people engage themselves.
Yeah, exactly, Jake. So it's drop-in style. So we're usually set up for about 2 hours. Folks can come when they'd like. And then we have different booths on each of the topics, and then a few other booths that are a little more generalized. And at our topic-specific booths, we actually have facilitators there, so people who are subject matter experts who can really speak to what the plans are and answer those questions. As well, like I mentioned, we have some interactive things, and we have some takeaways that people can take.
And you mentioned this too. You're providing information, but it's more, as you said, the higher level things, the things about the province's targets and the big milestones that are being set up to achieve this transition we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. So it's those high level plans that we're talking about, the high level concepts that'll get us towards net zero and into a clean energy.
Now, for the local economy, the plans present many opportunities as new areas are built up in support of clean energy. So what areas are you talking about, these new energies that are going to be built up?
Yeah, so the energy technologies that we're talking about are onshore wind, solar, offshore wind, and green hydrogen. And that's where you would see those opportunities like new jobs and localized opportunities.
Now, you were also offering webinars for online presentations and discussions, as well as an online resource page for easy access to plans and helpful information. And I assume it's the same information that's what offered at these open houses, just in a different form.
Yeah, so if you go to the Clean Energy Conversations page on the Net Zero Atlantic website, you'll find all of the links to the government plans, all of our dates and locations, as well as a few other interesting pieces on there.
So you guys are here tonight in Louisdale. You're going to be in Port Hood, I believe, tomorrow night.
Tomorrow afternoon in Port Hood, and then we'll be in Sydney on Wednesday night and Bedeck on Thursday afternoon.
You guys are having a public consultation phase now, and you're going to be doing another series of consultations on the mainland. So after this public consultation phase, what's the next step in the process?
The really interesting thing about this is rather than it being a consultation, it's actually education and engagement. So this is an opportunity for folks to ask their questions and also share their questions so that we know what kinds of questions and conversations are happening, and we can take that information with us to consider further. And that's what we're hoping to get lots of meaningful conversations out of these events.
So I'm here with Sheila Patterson with the Department of Energy, and you're part of this series of clean energy transition public engagement sessions, including here tonight at the Louisdale Lions Club. So maybe you can describe the role of the Department of Energy in this process.
Essentially what we've done is to set up a number of sessions so that there's information that's available to the public. So it would be a matter of going to communities across the province, set up a bit of an open house style situation. So it's set up so there's good information about the Clean Power Plan. So that talks about Nova Scotia transitioning away from fossil fuel, coal-fired power, and toward greater use of renewable energy. So the Clean Power Plan, wind energy, solar, coming plans for offshore wind, so the offshore wind roadmap, and talking about the green hydrogen action plan. So it's a matter of encouraging that people are very aware of where to go and get good information about that, and then also can have one-on-one conversations. So feel free to come in with questions, or also come in just to start from scratch and learn a little bit more about it, and very much so aimed at families. So there's stuff for kids to do, and kids of all ages.
And how are you working with Net Zero Atlantic? What's the relationship between the department and Net Zero?
Yeah, well, we probably work with Net Zero Atlantic on a number of different projects. In this particular one, so they're acting as a partner, a service provider. So they have good capabilities in terms of there's strong organization, et cetera. So what they're doing is Sarah, who talked to the engagement manager, has recommended the method of putting together the clean energy conversations, and so they're doing like the venue planning and stuff along those lines, and advertising, kind of trying to get the word out as much as possible. I appreciate you helping us to get the word out. That's fantastic. And then the provincial government, so we'd be working with them closely, and then show up or be part of the sessions as well. So the sessions would be Department of Energy staff and like arm in arm with Net Zero Atlantic.
Do you guys get the sense that these things are needed because there is some misinformation going around about clean green energy, and that you guys need to clear the record? Or is it just a matter of you feel people maybe are just a little bit lacking in knowledge in some aspects of it, and you're just trying to give people the energy? Or is it both?
I think that probably the big one is that there's a big change happening in Nova Scotia. So, when I started working in this area, we were almost entirely using coal fire. Coal fire was was our electricity production, and I've seen a change to it's getting greener and greener. I mean, last year we were 40%. We're on track for 50% green energy in Nova Scotia's mix this year. So and then to see that it'll change further by 2030. So it's major change. And then what we've heard from community sessions and from like the general public is how Nova Scotians want to hear directly from the government about energy matters and about the plans and so on. So I think there've been a lot of places where there are a lot of things that people could attend, and then wanting to hear from government because it's that objective, it's not from industry, it's not from a particular project or like for or against a particular project. It's about just the overall picture. And then, as you mentioned, it's a way of making sure that should there be that people can find that we can help direct them to good sources of quality information.
Yes, and you guys are holding consultations. There's one tonight. There's one tomorrow afternoon in Port Hood, I believe. So you guys are, and then after this, you guys are going to be going to mainland Guysborough, I believe, Antigonish, I think, or something like that. So you guys are trying to have these in areas where it's not too close together, where people can access them and things like that. So you're trying to spread them out, but be accessible at the same time.
Yeah, so these information sessions, I might say, so information interactive sessions. And so, like you mentioned, so we're in tomorrow, tomorrow, Tuesday, September 16th in Port Hood, and then the 17th in Sydney, 18th in Baddeck, and then in early October would be a matter of Guysborough, Pictou, West Hants, Halifax as well. And then in the early spring, we were in June, I should say, we were in, let's see if I can recall, Spring Hill, Masstown, Digby, Shelburne. And so the intent is to get all around the province. So we're never overly far away from the community member.
And, it was mentioned, you mentioned this too, you're trying to get the information out to the people. You're trying to get the goals, 2030, the dates, and this, it seems like it's broad general information, but it's, the information that people need the most right now. Is that how you see it?
I think so. And I think it's a matter of, it could start as broad in general. So if that's what somebody might be interested in, but if somebody might show up and they're really, really interested in solar energy, and maybe they're interested in solar energy as a community solar project, or how do I go learn something about evaluating, putting it on my community, or working to put it on my community center, my house, or whatever it might be. Somebody else might show up and they're really interested in offshore wind and what that might mean for jobs or for project activity in the water. And then people may have all different. So our hope is to be able to go broad, but then also if line people up to talk to experts so they can get into a bit more technical detail if that's of interest.
What are the next steps as far as the Department of Energy after you guys have these public information sessions? Where do you go from there?
I think to me it's a continuation, so it should be a matter of this should be an open line all along. So it's a matter of doing these specific sessions was wanting to have a date in the calendar that it's possible to go to a close community center. But there are things like there are email addresses on the Department of Energy website, but also I would suggest people go to the website for the clean energy conversations, because it's also a way of it can be a path to get to other sets of information, but it also could be a place to leave a question or comment. So that's another big piece would be that all through that this would be a matter of asking people questions or allowing for people to leave questions, things like that. So it's a matter of what are people thinking, what are people's concerns, but also what are they excited about.
So there was people here even before the session was supposed to start at 6:30. There's a good crowd here right now. I'm just looking around the room, and I anticipate there's going to be probably a steady flow of traffic. And I assume, have the others gone in this way too, where you've had quite a bit of interest from the public and people seem to be quite engaged?
Yeah, I think so. And it's I love that people, because it's you have a lot of things you could do in an evening or an afternoon. There's a lot of things you could do with your time. So if people are choosing to come out, I appreciate that. It's not the only way to do it. You can also do it by an email or whatever it might be, but this is, I think, a great way to be able to do a little bit of hands-on stuff. So I really appreciate people coming out. Yeah. So
I'm here with Nova Scotia Energy Minister and Richmond MLA Trevor Boudreau here tonight at the Louisdale Lions Club for a public information session, and it was well attended. There seemed to be a lot of engagement going on around the room, people having very lively discussions. So you must be happy with the turnout here tonight.
Yeah, no, look, it's as the local MLA, this is important too, because there's lots of potential for impact, certainly with the offshore, with green hydrogen here in the area, but it's also a great opportunity to talk about the clean power plan that we have as a province about getting to 80% renewables by 2030 and off coal, and how that moves forward. But look, this is about having information that people can understand and get a good grasp on. These are complicated issues and complicated things. And so this is a great way to have those discussions, to understand what are the questions that the communities have. So really pleased with how it's gone.
What is it you're hoping to accomplish? I know the chief idea is to get information out to the public because we're in such a period of transition right now with clean energy. And do you find that there's just not enough information getting out there, or is it just a matter of let's just get the information out there and hope that the public is as well informed
I
as
think
possible?
I think it's about getting that information out there, but it's also about getting feedback to understand what is it that people know, right? And so, as I was just saying, it's a bit complicated, right? Like, why are we moving to renewables instead of coal? Why are we looking at other options as well? And why are we making all these changes? And it's really it's twofold, right? It's about reliable and affordable power, and it's also about greening our grid as well. And so all of those things are at play here. And so all of the stations are kind of trying to take, a bit of that and say, do you have questions about what the clean power plan? Why are we moving to 80% renewables? And then the next one would talk about green hydrogen and why that's important and what the opportunity is there, or our offshore wind, or talking about our onshore wind and our solar and the battery storage. And so it's a lot. As the minister, who, I've only been in the role for 9 months now, it's a lot for me to take in. And I'm getting all of this information. So I think it's, again, another way to share that knowledge with the communities, but also to get feedback about how we can do better with informing people as well.
Now, I know this is a complex question, but I guess you can try to answer the best you can. How will the province harness clean energy for power? I guess what we're looking at is use in the grid. Is what
Yeah, so part of our clean power plan is about getting to 80% renewables by 2030 and getting off coal. That's mandated by the federal government, their regulations. Nope. What's very important to our government is making sure power is affordable. We hear lots about the struggles that people have and power rate increases and with Nova Scotia Power, but really the cheapest form of fuel here in Nova Scotia is onshore wind. And so we're very focused on creating that and enabling that opportunity. So just this year, we have 2 projects from a rate-based procurement a couple of years ago that are getting up and running this year. 2 to 3 more next year. We're talking about the Green Choice program that we have. All of this is about harnessing this resource that we have in spades here and utilizing it for the lowest cost, so that we can stabilize rates for Nova Scotians.
And then you're talking about onshore wind, and then at some point in time we're looking offshore wind as well as one of the components of this.
So look, we've it's well known in the industry. I think if people have been hearing a little bit about Wind West and the opportunity we have there, we have the strongest offshore winds in the world. And what that means to developers is they can produce the most power most efficiently with those offshore winds. What we're saying is we have enough offshore wind to be able to utilize not just in Nova Scotia, but across Canada, into Quebec, into Ontario, potentially looking at into New England if their needs are required as well. So this is about creating an opportunity for exporting as well. So again, we have a lot of what we need onshore for Nova Scotia, and then we can utilize that offshore. Some of it may be here as we grow industry, but others will go into the grid to other locations as well.
Now you're talking about wind, solar is also part of that. Possibly not as big a component from an industrial sense, I guess, but solar does have a role to play in this whole transition.
Oh, absolutely. And we're very proud of kind of the community solar program that we have here in the province. And also we see a lot of people, especially in our region, with putting solar panels on their own roofs or in their own backyards. And really what we've learned from other jurisdictions is you can't rely on just one power source. So we're going to be looking at all of this clean renewable power, and we're going to be looking at what is the role that natural gas can play. So maybe it's about using natural gas where we were using coal before to give that base load to support that solar and that onshore wind. And then you can talk about the battery storage opportunities that we have. And I know, the big picture idea is that like New Brunswick has assets that they could utilize, and we already get some clean power from Newfoundland and Labrador through the the maritime link. And so how do we all work together to provide that for each other? So it's a lot, but again, it's about diversifying your energy needs so that you're not reliant on just one thing.
Part of your government wants to be seen as leading this transition. Your government's made a lot of steps since being reelected to start this transition. And you alluded to this earlier, that part of leading is also listening and taking stock of where you're at and getting some feedback, but also not trying to be seen as moving willy-nilly and without consulting the public.
Yeah, and I think look, it's important to know, like, this onshore, especially when you talk about offshore wind or things that are foreign to us. We have onshore wind. People see windmills, on land, and they understand kind of what that is. But on the offshore, we have stakeholders who have questions, and it's important to make sure that we're informed on that. But it's important to know that we're not first. There's lots of this type of energy being produced in other parts of the world, and so we take the best practices from those places. We inform and consult and have conversations where we can to make sure that people understand why we're doing and what we're doing. And if they have questions, certainly saying, okay, well, let's figure out how we answer those to the best of our ability. And I'll give a quick example, if I may. Just last week, we had a number of fishers from across from across Nova Scotia go to Scotland with some of our staff to see this up close and personal, to actually look at an offshore wind farm and say, okay, like, how does this interact? How are you as fishers being supported? And also how can they be intertwined with this? And how do we coexist? And how do we work together? So there's still room to grow on that. There's still more discussions to be had, but it's important to kind of say, we're not starting this off. This has happened in other places. So,
and I guess it's important for the fishermen to see with their own two eyes that fishing industry and wind energy can coexist, and
That's
those
right.
are examples of.
Yeah, and I think, like, again, it's about building that trust, building that understanding of what we're trying to do. All of what we're trying to do is make sure that we continue to have success with that industry that has been so important in Nova Scotia for many, many years, and then bring in some new as well. So it can be a good news story all around it.
And speaking of good news stories, the WinWest announcement that was recently made, perhaps you can talk about what that announcement entails and what it'll mean for Nova Scotia.
Yeah, I know, the Prime Minister kind of identified 5 projects that are pretty much shovel ready right now and good to go. And then talked about 5 or 6 other projects that he sees as game changers, really. And we see that as well. And so we're very pleased that WinWest was on that list, and it was the only Atlantic Canadian project on that list. And it's because a lot of that heavy work, a lot of that hard work has been done. We've had a lot of dialogue about the needs and the wants, and about building infrastructure and the port development that's going to be needed, about the training and the skills that are going to be needed. And we have some of those already through our offshore gas and oil, but making sure we understand what those needs are and how we meet them. But this is about nation building projects, and what we're talking about with WinWest is being able to provide that electricity to other parts of Canada. This isn't just about us and our needs here in Nova Scotia, but it's about supporting all of Canada. And when you think about all the components that would have to be built, steel that would be needed from different parts of the country, right? Expertise that Quebec has on transmission lines. So we have groups in other parts of the country that can help us with this. So it is really a nation building project, and we're very excited.
And it could mean quite a bit of revenue for whoever's the provincial government at the time once that starts, to be able to produce and not just use it, but produce and ship that energy.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you think of Alberta and you think of other parts of the world where they've utilized their resource development to grow, right? We're often thought of here in Nova Scotia as a have-not province. But when you look at what we have, whether it's the natural gas that we have offshore, whether it's the offshore wind that we have, whether it's the onshore wind that we have, all of those are have things. We just need to harness them to be able to utilize them like others have been successful to make us a have province, not a have-not.
A Richmond County man is scheduled to return to court in connection with a number of charges. RCMP Northeast Traffic Services and Richmond County District RCMP charged 50-year-old Scott Wells of Framboise after an incident near East Bay. On September 4th, at around 5:20 p.m., RCMP Northeast Traffic Services officers responded to a report of erratic driving on Highway 4. The RCMP said investigators learned that a man driving a black Mitsubishi car repeatedly swerved in an apparent attempt to cause a collision with another vehicle and brandished a knife toward the driver. The 2 drivers were not known to one another, the RCMP noted. Through the investigation, the RCMP said officers identified the driver of the Mitsubishi and located the car parked at a residence. Wells has been charged with several offenses, including dangerous operation of a motor vehicle, possession of a weapon for a dangerous purpose, and 2 counts of failure to comply with a release order, the RCMP said, noting he had a first court appearance on September 8th in Sydney Provincial Court. According to Nova Scotia Public Prosecution Services, Wells returned to Sydney Provincial Court on September 11th when he was released on bail. PPS said Wells is scheduled to return to court on September 22nd in Sydney for a release order variation, then again on October 9th for election and plea. The RCMP reminded the public that anyone who witnesses erratic or unsafe driving should call 911 and provide as many details as possible about the vehicle, the location, and the unsafe actions observed. Inverness County District RCMP said they are seeking information from the public about an incident which took place in River Denny's. On August 27th at around 2 p.m., the RCMP said an officer responded to a report of mischief to a vehicle that was parked near a residence in the 1600 block of Northside River Denny's Road. At the scene, the officer observed a damaged Chevrolet Impala, and the RCMP believes the damage was caused by a firearm. The RCMP noted that a nearby garage was also struck. The RCMP believes that the vehicle was shot at in the early morning hours of August 27th. The police said a pickup truck was seen in the area around that time. Anyone with information or who has video footage of the area is asked to call Inverness County District RCMP at 902-625-2220 or contact Nova Scotia Crime Stoppers.
So I'm joined by Seniors Take Action Coalition Community Outreach Coordinator, Celeste Gotel. So your organization held its AGM this morning here at the Parish Hall in Louisdale. During the meeting, you honored Jean Potty as well as your aunt, Claire Doyle. So perhaps you can talk about that.
Sure. As you mentioned, we had our annual general meeting, and our year goes from April 1 till March 31st. So in our annual report, there is an acknowledgement of Claire Doyle, who is an active member of Seniors Take Action Coalition's Board of Directors. And Claire has been involved basically since we started back in 2016. But since the end of March, we also lost another board member, and that's Jean Potty, who was from St. Peter's. And that happened in this August. So we wanted to take this opportunity to honor both of them and to thank them and for everything they did to contribute to Seniors Take Action Coalition, but also everything they did to contribute to their community. They were both stand-up women who volunteered a lot, never said no, and we're always there to help somebody out.
During the AGM, there were some bylaw revisions. What was that about?
Well, when you start a new organization and file your bylaws with the Registry of Joint Stock, sometimes after you've operated for a period of time, you notice things that could be improved. So particularly, we wanted to be able to ensure that we had ongoing succession planning with the board. So because we had started with a whole new board, we were fearful that if several people left at the same time, that it would leave too much of kind of a gap in terms of knowledge and skills. So we changed the bylaw to have board members being able to join the board for 1 year or 2 years, but then also kind of repeat itself. And then we also wanted to clarify a little bit about the executive positions as well, to kind of clarify how long somebody could remain on the executive, because we want to make sure that we have the corporate knowledge by having seasoned board members, but also want to bring in new opportunities as well. And the final bylaw change had to do with the requirement for a not-for-profit organization to have an auditor do their financial statements. Having a full-fledged auditor is very prohibitive financially for a lot of small organizations, and it's really not a requirement. So we adjusted that just to make sure that people knew we'd still be filing financial statements, but that they would not be expecting a full-fledged audit.
Now, you mentioned the finances. I know the financial picture was presented to the board. So how does that look? How do the finances of the group look?
Well, we're a very small organization that relies on grant funding. We carried over a balance from last year from a grant that we had received from the Department of Seniors and Long-Term Care to develop the Senior Center Without Walls. We didn't use all that grant. We asked for an extension, so the monies were carried over. But we've also received a $20,000 grant from the municipality this year, which will allow us to continue with the Senior Center Without Walls. So for a small organization with a small budget, we're doing some big work.
And there were also changes to the membership application, which I assume are similar to the housekeeping matters you were just talking about earlier.
Again, as a new organization, like sometimes things kind of come up where we talked about our membership and we decided that we wanted to actually have people complete a membership form so that that would show that they kind of support the work of the coalition.
Now, you presented an annual report, and what were some of the highlights of that report?
Well, the annual report will be available for viewing on the Richmond County Municipal website as well as through social media. I'll be posting that today, but it captures kind of the highlights of the year. And again, our year goes from April 1 till March 31st, 2025. But certainly some of the highlights are some of the activities that we were able to do through the Senior Center Without Walls, because that project is kind of a pilot project, which allowed us to start some new programming. So I featured a number of things that we did, also featuring some of the things that we do to try to promote an age-friendly community. We do a lot of work to get information out there. We're doing a lot of work with Talil recently, our number of publications, etc. So that kind of featuring what our activities have been for the last year for people that are interested in viewing that.
Now, I noticed when I came in, also present was Richmond Warden Lois Landry and the MLA and Energy Minister Trevor Woodrow.
Yes.
And it's important to have these municipal and provincial partners for a group like yours.
Absolutely. And we've had nothing but success in building our partnership with our municipal partners. And on occasion, they have kind of attributed some of the things that they've moved forward with as a result of us working in collaboration with them. We have a very close working relationship with Trevor and his team, because again, it's important that we are in a position to be able to bring information to both the warden as well as the MLA about what is impacting older adults in the community, and that they seek us out as well for our input. So that's kind of we're very happy about the relationships that we've been able to develop with both levels of government.
Into the fall and into the winter, what are you guys looking at for your group? What are some of the things coming up?
A lot of stuff happening. Our whole new board has been elected. We have recruited 6 new board members, so we're excited to kind of get them into the fold. We'll be meeting as a board to do a little bit of planning for the future, but we'll be continuing on and wrapping up the funding portion of the Senior Center Without Walls, but not wrapping up the Senior Center Without Walls. We'll be continuing to expand what we offer through that program. We're looking at pursuing a number of funding applications to be able to continue on with some of that work. And particularly some of the work that we're going to be starting up is, and this is directly related to the findings of the Acting Collectively project, which were featured not that long ago, which was a huge research project. And one of the findings of that project was that the people that were interviewed, many of them identified mental health as a concern. So we're going to be offering mental health first aid training for older adults in Richmond County. And we've also partnered with Bereavement Nova Scotia to start offering some grief-related sessions as well. So lots of great work. Our intent as an organization is not to kind of duplicate what's happening in the clubs. The clubs do an exceptional job of bringing people together to socialize. What we do is we work with the clubs to kind of look at other areas like education, et cetera, and look at other programs to help enhance the ability for older adults to age well in the community.
Thank you very much for watching.
It's my pleasure to welcome Allison and her team to join us today. We've had 2 opportunities over the last year to have folks from CBU come and talk about this project. And both of those times were before they actually heard that they were funded for this project. Since that time, the project has been funded. It is a very exciting time for the future of older adults in Eastern Nova Scotia. I am so excited about the fact that they were awarded this funding and that Allison was able to join us today to share more information about what it's all about, what's coming up, how we can become involved. And I think we're well positioned as an organization to be able to really kind of support the success of this going forward. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Allison, and this is her show.
So to start off with, I just want to say thank you to everyone who is here, who we worked with. We worked really closely with Dorothy and Celeste, and we came the last time I was here, which was, I believe, the AGM last year in September. we actually did know that we had it, but we weren't allowed to say anything. So I just, yeah, it was awful sitting there for 2 hours going like, trying to keep our mouths closed. So it's wonderful being here and able to talk about what we're going to do. And also, I really want to acknowledge that STAC was elemental in our consultations for the proposal. We wouldn't have gotten it if you all as a group hadn't been so welcoming and so willing to share your voices. We used Richmond County as a case study example in the proposal of what the proposal could look like. And I remember the week leading up to putting the proposal in, I was emailing Dorothy almost every day going, what about this? What about this? And you're so quick. And also we had the housing information that Celeste provided. So, and all of the amazing work that's already going on here. So just a huge thank you. And I also want to say, kind of bizarrely, out of the entire FRI, which I think there were 46 entries, proposals to start out with, only 2 of them addressed Nova Scotia's aging population. When we know it is such a significant group of community members that we really need to think about how do we build in that structure and that support. So yeah, I'm just really excited to be here. I'm really grateful to Research Nova Scotia for awarding us $12.4 million over 7 years. We've already catalyzed that for additional funding that's going to be coming in to bolster the project as well. So it's just, it's incredible, and I'm incredibly grateful to be here with you all. Today, I'm going to give you kind of an overview of the project for those who don't know, who haven't been involved, and also talk about where we are. So the project officially started on May 1st, 2025. And since then, since May 1st, we've been really busy behind the scenes, not out in community, because we've been building the team who is going to, and the infrastructure for this project. So we've been hiring team members, we've been building a remote virtual monitoring lab I'm going to talk about. We've been doing kind of all the infrastructure that we need to launch the 7 years of this project. So what we are looking at doing at a high level overview is we've said to Research Nova Scotia, we know that aging requires, everybody knows it's always, healthcare supports, right? So that's one of them, is healthcare supports. The other is housing supports. And then the other sector is social support and navigation. We heard from talking with Richmond County that there's all these smaller grants and smaller pots of money, and that everybody here, as we've heard already in this AGM, is already doing amazing work. But how the challenge has been stringing them or bringing them all together and having it over a longer period of time, so it isn't a constant scramble for small grants every year. So the good news is we have 7 years of funding. We don't need to be necessarily scrambling every year, and we can come in and provide. I heard you mention community navigator role. And so we have funding for community navigators again, which was a program that I know has been done in multiple places across rural Nova Scotia, but keeps coming in and out and in and out. So we're going to have those sustained community navigator positions across the Eastern Health Zone. And I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, I realize, talking about what we're gonna do. But essentially what this showed is how using the Canada census data from 2010, 2015, and 2020 or 2021, how rapidly Nova Scotia is aging. So the dark red, the darker the colors, is the larger percentage of the population that in that particular census district is over the age of 50. This one is, I'm trying to see the small screen, if it's 55 or 65. But the darker red is actually 80 to 100% of the population in that census district. So we're taking, this is a geographic preview of the approach that we're taking to identify communities that we're going to be working with. But you can see a lot, like the vast majority of Nova Scotia outside of Halifax is over the age, I think this is 55 now that I'm kind of squinting my eyes at it. So we know by 2030 that I believe it's 30% of all of Nova Scotia's population everywhere across the province will be over the age of 65. So 1 in 3 Nova Scotians will be over the age of 65. So how we're really looking at how do we break down these traditional silos of healthcare, housing, and social supports and create an integrated response to support individuals in their communities. To do this, it's interdisciplinary, which is just academic language for a bunch of people coming from different areas of expertise. So my background is in architecture and social work, and I'm working with a whole group of other individuals that include economists, cultural studies, anthropology, biology, medicine, nursing. We're all getting together to think about how do we work with communities to do this work? How do we implement these changes? And then how do we evaluate them to understand what's working and not working? Most importantly is our approach centers aging rural Nova Scotians in the research. So I'm going to talk about this in a bit, but everything that we are doing is being done with community. So it's not academics because, we heard us academics love to come in and do research, right? And then a lot of times, unfortunately, leave because also we are beholden to funding. But it's not necessarily what I, Allison, think the Eastern Health Zone needs. It's what you all are going to tell us that the Eastern Health Zone needs in healthcare, housing, and social supports. We started that work a little bit in the proposal component, but we were very clear to Research Nova Scotia. This is just our best guess. We won't know until we are out in community listening and working with individuals who this is their lived experience. So under those 3 areas, healthcare, social support, and housing. Okay. As a former residential architect, I have to say, my baby is the housing support, but I love all of these streams. So I'm really excited about the housing support because actually it was probably when we were out doing the proposal and consulting, the thing that got individuals so excited was that we would have community handy people that would be employed by the project and who we'd be providing supplies for to go to older adults' houses and do maintenance, repairs, and any type of retrofits to facilitate aging in the right place for individuals. So the social support pillar, as I said, we're going to have community navigators. So that will look like that part is really in the process and will be shaped by community engagement. But we heard that there needs to be some kind of connecting backbone in communities to for individuals to know and connect all the amazing things that are already going on. So wellness, supporting things like that. I know you all have an incredible roster of social engagement and activities. And so one of our questions that we'll be looking to ask you is, what do those existing programs need to support and connect individuals to them who aren't currently connected? So as Celeste said, there are many older adults who aren't part of seniors clubs and seniors organizations. So what do they need to connect? Because we also know one of the major issues facing older adults is loneliness and social isolation. And then that has a pernicious impact on people's wellness. So all of these things are very much connected. For our healthcare access and services, we're focusing on prehabilitation, which just means getting bodies as well as possible. And I should say mind bodies, because it's not just the physical body, it's the mind as well, for preparing for surgeries. We know that orthopedic surgeries are the highest type of surgery that older rural Nova Scotians are facing. So we're looking at prehabilitation for that. And then we are also looking at, once individuals have gone through surgery, we're bringing a remote automated monitoring lab that it has currently been piloted for a number of years in McMaster, at McMaster University and Teaching Hospital. And we're bringing it's currently being built right now on the new Cape Breton Medical Campus. So it will mean that individuals who do have to have surgery will be able to go home earlier from hospital and be monitored 24/7 through a remote automated monitoring device that identifies physiological challenges an individual might be experiencing after surgery. It's been shown to identify them about 24 hours before it would be recognized in a hospital from a doctor or a nurse being like, something's going on here. So this is what kind of the broader buckets of what we're doing. And I want to say part of this as well, what was so exciting to me as a researcher and why I spent way too many hours of my life working on this proposal, and will probably spend way too many hours of my life on it over the next 7 years, is because it's actually bringing interventions and supports to community. This $12.4 million, the majority of it isn't to fund researchers sitting behind their computers doing stats and all of that. It's literally going to fund community navigator positions. It is, like I said, going to fund the community handy person program that will be starting. We're also doing partnership and building with NSCC to hopefully create a community handy person carpenter program across rural Nova Scotia, because one of the things that we heard is that there just isn't trades. There isn't people there to do particularly sometimes the smaller jobs, and there also isn't the knowledge base in the construction industry of how to do accessibility retrofits. So we're doing that. The prehabilitation program will be for virtual. Hopefully we might do virtual. We're going to listen actually though and see. So it'll be bringing prehabilitation programs out into the community that individuals can access. Currently, there is only 2 prehabilitation centers for all of the Eastern Health Zone. One is in the CBRM and the other is in Inverness. So that is a long distance for individuals who need rehabilitation and surgery to travel. And how can people do that, particularly in the winter when the roads are bad? How can people do that when they don't have access to independent vehicular transportation, which is what we overwhelmingly rely on throughout rural Nova Scotia? And then this virtual care lab, it's called the Protect Lab, will be there situated in the Cape Breton Medical Campus, and it's there for decades. Really looking at how can we bring virtual and remote care to rural individuals so they don't have to have access to a car, so they don't have to drive on winter roads. They can have that consistent care. As a social worker, I am incredibly excited about that because I know it can also be used for social connection. It can be used so people can just, call up and have a chat. All of those things. Talk to social workers, but it's not just. It won't only be used through that surgical medical model. We have the ability where I'm working with some individuals in computer science at Dalhousie who are looking at designing and creating devices for rural Nova Scotians to have access to the internet where there is no existing digital service or when they don't have internet. And those will be used for all of this. So I'm super excited. The guiding framework for this research is community-based participatory research. So it means it's a meaningful form of social action and it centers lived experience knowledge. So again, I have a skill set that I'm bringing to facilitate this project, but I have to listen to all of you in this room who have the lived expertise. So, and I situate all of my work under critical feminist theory, which I know isn't particularly popular politically in some areas right now. But all that it means is that we have to understand that all of these issues that seniors living in rural landscapes are facing are part of this complex system that has not been created to meet all of your needs as you age. And that also people experience the world differently based on their interlocking identities and experiences. And I think Dorothy gave a beautiful example of that, just about brushing teeth, right? I mean, think about that's a daily activity, but it can be so different and so complex. And there could be so many barriers for different individuals. So as part of this, because of the community-based participatory research, we have started a lived advisory council who are first meeting is tomorrow. And I'm really excited about that because there are so many things on the project already that I'm like, okay, I don't know, we have to ask community. We have to ask community. My team is probably sick of me saying, I don't know, we have to ask community. So I'm so excited for this first lived advisory council. We put out a general call. There are still spaces. I do think that there are the 2 spaces for which we kind of wanted to do like a 2 to 3 per county who's in the project. But the council is not maxed out yet, if anybody is interested in that. Right now, we're asking people to provide the first kind of thing of business to do is to be identifying NORCs, which are the communities that the project communities that we're going to work with. So the Lived Advisory Council, we will be asking everything from like, what do you think about this community workshop we're going to run, to actually you can all tell us and provide feedback on the website. Because again, I could be like, I don't know, we have to ask community. is that we have it up. We just got it up, I think, last week, very, very recently. Now we need feedback on it. What else should be up there? All of that. So it is a 7-year project timeline. So, and I want everybody to also understand that community-based participatory research takes time. So, and this was one of the things that was so exciting to me with this 7-year project of funding is literally the first 2 years are working with community to make sure we have things right. So we don't want to be going out and doing, I mean, if you tell us very honestly that actually we don't want post-surgical, I'm fine being in a hospital, longer and all of that. I don't think that's the case for anybody because we had initial feedback. I mean, we would have to pivot on what we were providing. So right now we are here in year 1 and we are identifying the NORC communities. I'm going to talk about what NORCs are. I hope on the next slide. And then everything will continue to unfold from there. But it's very much an iterative process. It's not, I had to do it for the proposal, like we will do, but I cannot emphasize enough that it is what we will be doing is based in the community consultation. So NORCs, which I've mentioned now, what these are, there is a lot of great research out of the US and out of Ontario that shows that NORCs, which are naturally occurring retirement communities, are a powerful way to organize aging supports. And what NORCs are residential areas not originally designed for older adults, but where a significant portion of older adults have ended up living. So it doesn't mean, it's occurred naturally, which means that it isn't because there's a large, like 55 plus residential community out there. I always say I currently live on a NORC in Sydney. My street is, I think my partner and I are the only ones who live on there who are under the age of 55 because everybody who lives there moved there 30 to 40 years ago and have continued out their life course there. They're also really powerful organizing mechanisms because residents often have long-term community ties to the area and strong social networks, as you all exemplified here in this room. So for Homeward Bound, I also have to say there's very little work has been done with rural NORCs. So we're making it up as we go through collaboration with everybody here. So a lot of times these will be like apartment buildings in Toronto, right? There is one in Halifax, which is an apartment building. But I know most of us here, we don't live in apartment buildings across rural Nova Scotia. So what we've done, and this is the first part of the research that's been completed, is that we have taken a look and mapped out the smallest standard census unit in the 2021 census and identified across all 6 counties in eastern Nova Scotia where 40% or more of the population in that dissemination area is over the age of 65. So again, this is 2021 data. Everybody is 4 or 5 years older. So we're there. We do have a little bit of wiggle room within this as well. And that you should also know that each dissemination area is about 600 to 800 individuals. And that's the same across Canada. So this is what we have for Richmond County based on the census data. St. Peter's. So this tells us based on the census data that all along here, along the coast, more than 40% of the population who lives there is over the age of 65. The yellow, is the population in 20 to 21 was 38 to 40%. And then the population here, in all here, was 35 to 38% of the population was over the age of 65. And then here, which is where we are, right? Somewhere. Okay. It says less than 35%, but again, this was 5 years ago, right? Yeah. So, yes, Dorothy.
So what struck me from this is that the area that's in red,
Yeah.
I would say that a lot of those people are retired with lots of money.
That was my initial understanding as well, which means no, they probably don't need the supports, right? Yeah. So thank you. So that's the other equity lens that we are bringing to this is that was my suspicion as well. And that's why I wanted to come back and ask it'll be through community discussions as well. Yeah.
Like, so I know the community where we live,
Yeah.
there's a lot of younger people moving in.
Oh, okay.
And so it's not all, it's people are
Yeah.
aging,
Yeah.
but they're not being replaced, the aged ones.
Yeah.
Younger
Yeah.
people are starting to move in. And it's almost all of a sudden, like, you have an older person that lives there and someone's walking down the road, you say, well, who's that? I have no idea.
Don't know.
And they've been there all their life because these younger people are starting to come back.
Yes. Yes. I've heard that. Yeah.
It's going to throw that.
I
Some of
know.
us not so young coming back.
Yeah.
But the older people still need your help because they can't.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just a question around the data. Does it incorporate those that are seasonal as well?
It would include individuals who consider these their permanent residents.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So individuals could be, it's all about, do you
Yeah,
reside there for
these
more?
of red. A lot of
I
those
know.
ones are seasonal.
It's really, it's interesting.
Allison,
Yes.
these communities along the coast there, and others, like
Like-
you said,
Are here?
well,
in the
you said the smallest subset in the census.
Yes. This
So,
is this.
I mean,
Yeah, that when you're seeing these colored regions, those are regions of 600 to 800 permanent residents.
right. 'Cause
Yeah.
we have like, I don't know how many communities
Yeah.
in Richmond County. I think it's,
Yeah.
I don't know, 70 or more.
Yeah.
Like individual communities.
Yeah.
And some have fewer than 600 and some have more than.
Yeah, and it's really how the census the census map lays it out. So
There's three subsets in Richmond County for the census data.
yeah,
So it's only the ones that are between 600 and 800 that are considered.
well, no, they're all of Richmond County is divided into, I always forget this word. Dissemination areas. So all of Canada is divided into these 600 to 800 units, census units. And so what we did is we have mapped all of like the demographics of all of these dissemination units across. Oh, maybe I did take something out. Okay, that was accident. Whatever.
So I know that this is
Yeah.
being discussed tomorrow as well. There's several of us in the
Yes.
room that are on that committee. Will we
Yeah.
actually see the names of the communities?
Yes, we have maps, and we also have a like a Google Earth where you can like zoom in and out.
That'd
We
be
just
helpful.
didn't have it for this, so
And
yeah.
I think what we're all
yeah,
our heads around is we
Yeah.
think of other communities as having greater than 20 or 30%, and we don't see them there. It would be interesting to see a map that shows, okay, well, Louisdale has 22%, whereas I don't think we
getting in,
maybe
getting into the granular details of the census data.
is that
We have a GIS analyst on the team, and this was just our preliminary. Yeah. And so you tell me what questions I need to bring back to her and what analysis we can do. And we will move forward with that. And yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I looked at this and I immediately said the same thing, like, oh, these are all people who retired and bought waterfront property and really probably don't need the social, or not like any, you might need the healthcare, but like the supports, right? So we want to have, again, this is challenging that, like, I don't want to come in with my GIS maps and go, this is what the data says, no matter what your lived experience is, we need to decide this together. Yes.
So what is she using?
Yeah.
Other than this to identify these north communities?
Yeah. This was it. Like the primary was like figuring out where these pockets, like these concentrations of older adults across rural landscapes in rural Nova Scotia are, and then we go from there. But it's also, this is the role of the Lived Advisory Committee, and we will also be doing a couple of some community workshops in the fall to work with communities to get feedback as well. My question is, do you have ideas for how we should do that?
Well, I think for me, because we're talking, I love data, and data just always makes me ask more questions.
Exactly.
To me, the question is the data manipulated? Like, can we manipulate it? So, for example, if we know that people, and there's under 800 people in Pitt-de-Gras, but if we put Pitt-de-Gras and Ayrshire together, now our numbers might make sense if we
Absolutely.
because I know I myself am looking, I'm from Madame. I think I'm shocked that it's not a
That's really shocked too. I'm not gonna. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that makes me curious.
Yeah.
Right. So how deeply can we dig into that information?
Very, very deep.
Love it. Thank
you. Right now, like I said, we have all the demographic data from the 2021 census, and we can feel like whatever is in the 2021 census, we can look at what's going on in those areas.
I just looking at the blue and the green areas and service of cell service and phone service and our offerings of like virtual options. I know in some of those areas, signal is incredibly challenging for folks, as well as transportation limitations. So I think that's something to consider when exploring. Or not choosing, but just offerings of programming. I think that's a barrier for some folks in those areas. And so when I'm looking at that data, I'm like, holy cow, like that's a significant number of folks that are missing out.
Just to build on what Jacqueline mentioned, in my mind, and I know that's not how it's done, but in my mind, there are natural occurring communities that through a whole new definition that makes sense to group together, because just the way that because a lot of our communities are much smaller than 600 people.
Yeah.
But several communities together maybe identify as a community, you know what I mean? So I think that I'm surprised it's not red right across the map, because I know how many older adults we have living in Richmond County.
Again, I want to highlight that this doesn't mean that there isn't a significant concentration of older adults living here. It just means it's less than 35% of the population. But let's put that in the Canadian context, where it's I think like if you look at the nation overall, it's creeping up to about 20% of Canadians are 65 and older. So even just this, if this is 32%, that is, I would say already.
But when I look at that area along the coast there, those are even smaller communities than some of our larger centers in Richmond County, and they're not like, that's the part that I'm perplexed by. But
Yeah.
I guess we'll get more of a sense, because some of those smaller communities don't have near those numbers.
No, so they would all be put together in the census. Yeah. So what would happen is, say, like, let's say this whole area right here has a population of 600 to 800. They would all be put into the census, the same census district. So there is already kind of a grouping. Maybe to clarify to make it easier to see, is I need maps from the GIS individual as well that shows all of the census districts there, so we can take a look. But we're not doing anything without actually going and talking through these questions and these queries to make sure that we're getting it as right as possible. This is where we are at in the project, and so would really welcome ideas for what further data, or what further information we need to make this decision. And also, and we'll be talking about this with the Lived Advisory Committee, like, what is the process we should take? Because it can't just be based on this, bird's eye view, GIS. That is just one element of the guidance with it. So, I see. Sorry, Marlene, I see your hand up.
Yes, I just want to kind of ask you a question. I know data is really important in what you're doing, and I truly understand that. But when I'm looking at an Acadian perspective, a lot of the things of data wasn't included for us because we were in a press society. Many data is incorporated with the majority of the groups. And you've mentioned the idea of a community navigator. And what I would like to state is that if there's someone that you hire that can be bilingual and address some of those issues with the Acadian francophone population, as well as other minority groups, like you're looking at the Indigenous population here, LGBT plus probably as well. You have immigration. There's a lot of different diverse minority groups, and I just feel that I don't want to be forgotten. I guess as an Acadian francophone from our area, and many of the resources that we have or are limited in having is so important, again, for the isolation and all that component for our seniors. And many times they won't maybe say anything because of the fact they don't want to rock the mid-waves. So it's really important to address those needs as well. Cultural diversity is really, really an important component. And it's not just language. It's looking how many people here have survived. And with the support of the community, and I'm sure linking that together and having group sessions is really important, because when you start from the base, you get a lot of the answers and what are their main concerns. There's another issue that I'd just like to add on. You've added on surgery and everything else. But here, as a community and many seniors, cancer is a very big issue here and transportation, because the nearest clinics are in Sydney or maybe Antigonish, which is almost 2 hours away. So you're looking at a lot of expense, looking at that, and especially if you have to have treatments or appointments, and many times that's forgotten. But it is a very financial challenge. So to incorporate cancer as part of that section that you have for surgeries or post-surgery, and that's an issue as well, because they do have to travel, whether it's in Antigonish or in Sydney to get those services. So just to note that, I know I was writing a little bit while you were speaking, and I didn't want to forget certain things. I know Trevor has mentioned quite a few times and has spoken on her behalf with internet service and phone service, and there has been a big decline in that in a number of years. So if we want to have people link up, that's truly an important factor. And having not only that issue addressed, but also the idea or are not, or are technically challenged to deal with that. So look at alternatives of what can be done rather than just those services as well. So again, you've addressed the fact that the community meetings is one issue that people can have access to, which I think that is also a great start and on the card. So I'll stop there.
Have you joined our advisory committee?
I'll be able to bring forward the.
Oh, I was asking, I just said join our advisory committee. Please.
Well, I know I can be contacted at the moment, but like I say, if there's any way that I can help or assist, I will truly do that.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. I will say, responding to thinking about cancer care, that is on our radar. And the McMaster lab had been doing cancer care surgeries within it, like including that in its scope. So it's definitely a possibility, and it's something that is on our radar. So, and as well as, I really appreciate everything else you've shared. That is our website. You can see there. That is my email right there. We have a. I'll send out the slides to everybody. Okay. So if you email me, it will probably be forwarded to our team, to the team account on that. Just FYI, because I think you all know the scope of this work, and it cannot be done by one person. So it really is a community and a team. I think within 2 years, we're going to have, I think, 16 people on the team doing this work. So it's a really, really significant scope, but I'm really excited to be collaborating with everybody across the Eastern Health Zone. So thank you.
I just wanted to mention for folks in the room that there are several people from Richmond County that are on the group. So Rachel, Dorothy, I'm kind of from Richmond County, and Jacqueline is also also.
Good.
And then I know Sheila's on it as well.
Okay.
So we have a lot of great people that are very familiar with what's going on in our community. So
awesome. And we want to, we recognize people won't be able to come every time. And so we've kind of been looking at 4 people per, and there's 6 counties. And we know each county is unique and, has, needs to be included in the discussions, the ongoing discussions on this. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Now, what was your takeaway about from the guest speaker, what she presented?
Well, we're really excited about this project, Homeward Bound, which is being led by Cape Breton University. We've been aware of it for some time, and we have contributed and kind of advised the researchers even prior to their funding application going in about some of the things that need to be considered around the health and well-being of older adults in rural communities. So now they're up and running, and we're very excited to see kind of what happens. It's a long-term project over 7 years. Richmond County, as most folks know, has a very aging population. Over 33% of our population in the last census were over 65, over 46% are 55 and above. So we're looking forward to working with them. They have just formed a lived advisory committee, of which there are several people, including myself from Richmond County, that will be on that committee that will be able to contribute to the project.
Yes, and I believe there's a meeting tomorrow. You guys are going to be discussing some of the demographics that kind of were presented and identifying these communities to be part of the program.
Yeah, so this project, Homeward Bound, is for all of Eastern Nova Scotia. So it includes CBRM, Victoria, Inverness, Richmond, Guysborough, and Antigonish. So it's the Eastern Zone Health Region. But some of the activities that will take place and some of the programs that they will roll out in specific communities will be based on a criteria that they're using about natural occurring communities. And we'll be working with them to give them advice and to give our input in terms of how these communities are formed, as well as things that we may want to consider future forward in terms of how they go about to select the communities that will directly benefit from some of the programs, which are a little ways away. They're still in the very early stages. But there will be funding available for communities across Eastern Zone to actually implement some of these programs. So that's very exciting. Programs like community navigation and supporting homeowners with household improvements, et cetera, as well as supporting folks who are having to have surgery pre and post.
I'm here with Dr. Allison Grittner, who's an assistant professor at Cape Breton University's Bachelor of Social Work program. So perhaps you can talk about some of the courses offered at the program at CBU, and what professions would those completing the program be able to access?
Absolutely. So our program, individuals who are in our program, which started in 2023, once they graduate, they are eligible to be registered social workers with the Nova Scotia College of Social Work, which opens up a whole slew of positions that they can work in. They can work in community development. They can work in some medical social work in terms of case management. And a lot of times they end up working in community organizations, sometimes alongside groups like we are here today with the Seniors Take Action Coalition in Richmond County. And as for the courses I teach, specifically right now, I teach diversity and oppression, which teaches individuals in the program to understand how complex these social systems are that all of us live in and try and navigate, and then how to make change in these systems for vulnerable and marginalized groups. And I also teach social policy, which is useful because social policy goes everywhere from the top level is international down to individual social workers as they enact policy in community and organizations. So those are my two favorite courses to teach.
Now, you're also the lead researcher with the program Homeward Bound, Enhancing Healthcare, Housing, and Social Support for Aging Rural Nova Scotians. So perhaps you can talk a little bit about this program.
Absolutely. I'm incredibly excited about it. The research project launched on May 1st. 2025. So we're just in the early days of it, but over the next 7 years, we are looking to work alongside communities across the Eastern Health Zone in Nova Scotia, really listening and understanding to what individuals need to remain in their homes and communities, because that's what we've heard people want. And really focusing on these three areas that are normally done in silos, but we're looking at them together because we know that people's health is intertwined with their housing, and then it's also intertwined with social support. So we can't just look at healthcare. We have to look at what are called the social determinants of health, of which housing and sociality are part of.
So what was the impetus for this program? How did it come out? What was the...
Research Nova Scotia put out a call, I believe it was in February 2024. They put out a call for the focused research investment. They were looking for proposals for research that could really transform kind of wicked social problems, of which aging in rural landscapes is a wicked problem. It's very different than aging in an urban environment where there is the concentration of supports across all areas. In rural landscapes, people have much further to travel for access to healthcare, accessing any trades to do work on their house, and even just you have a lot further to go to chat with your neighbors.
Why were you here today? It was to present I guess to show where you guys are at in the program. And it looked like one of the main things is you're trying to identify communities.
Yeah. So the first component of the research that we have finished is taking a look where there are dense pockets of older adults across eastern Nova Scotia. But we know that looking at it from just kind of a bird's eye census perspective isn't enough. We have to talk with community and really understand what those experiences are on the ground to identify the communities that we're going to work with. Right now, we're looking at I believe it's 10 to 11 communities across the Eastern Health Zone.
Now, some of the questions during the feedback portion seem to involve the demographics that you guys and the census data that you guys are using to kind of identify these communities. Now, the census data was 2021, I believe it was. So it's a little bit older.
Yes.
And there was some questions about, what groups or what communities should be identified type of thing. And that's all part of the process.
Absolutely. It's part of the process. We have the census data that we're working with. It was interesting because many of the community members here were surprised that certain areas of Richmond County actually didn't have the density of population over the age of 65 that individuals thought. But I do want to emphasize that the pockets that had somewhat lower density still had significantly higher density of older adults than when you look at the Canadian average.
So, other than that census data, are there other ways you're going to use to identify some of these communities? The feedback, I guess, you're getting from the public is all part of that.
Absolutely.
Ways other than that too?
Yeah, so we're going to be taking a look at specific demographic information. So we want to identify densities of older adults that would be particularly vulnerable, like might not have the income to have their own private vehicles to drive, to finish for healthcare. So we'll be looking at things like gender, income, family composition, all of which is in the census data. We do know individuals who are most vulnerable to entering long-term care facilities, which I don't know anybody who wants to, live in a long-term care facility, are typically women who live alone and who have lower income, and also who don't have any children living close by. So we do know that is the more vulnerable pockets of populations that we really want to target and ensure that they receive the supports of this project.
Now, there's a meeting tomorrow, you mentioned.
Yeah.
So what's going on? What is that meeting, and what are you guys going to be doing at that?
So all aspects of the project are guided by a lived experience. So we have the Lived Advisory Council, which consists of multiple individuals from every county in the Eastern Health Zone. And so we're going to be working through some of these wicked issues, like which communities, what should we be looking at aside from the geographic data and the demographic analysis to decide which communities we're going to partner with. That's the first thing up for discussion. We're also going to have a Lived Advisory Committee that is from that will be comprised of professional individuals whose work is in this area. I just talked with the individual in charge of emergency management in Richmond County. And for example, he would be an individual who we would love to have his expertise when thinking through all of the problems that we're going to be encountering as we go through the research.
So after that meeting tomorrow, what's the next step in the process? Where from there?
The next step in the process, well, we got to see where tomorrow goes and the feedback. We will be going back to our GIS analyst, and we will be scheduling community workshops to get feedback on understanding the NORCs, the pockets of density of older adults, and which communities we should be going in and partnering with. So the next step will be we're going to go back and do some more GIS and some demographic analysis, and then we're going to be out in community across the Eastern Health Zone talking to people.
And I assume that includes Richmond County, obviously.
Obviously, yes.
Infants under 8 months and adults 75 years and older will have access to free protection against respiratory syncytial virus, or RSV, the provincial government announced. The province said those Nova Scotians can book their RSV vaccine through pharmacies and public health. Primary care providers will begin offering the vaccine in November, the province noted. Adults 75 and older will be offered the vaccine Arexvy or Abrisvo and need only one lifetime dose of the vaccine to protect against RSV, the province said. The province said the program for infants under 8 months will be offered every year during the RSV season, which typically begins in late fall and lasts until spring. Newborns will be offered their dose before being discharged from hospital, and other eligible infants can receive their dose from their primary care provider or public health, the province said, noting that this year the program runs from October 15th to April 30th. The province said newborns will be offered Beyfortus, which is not a vaccine, but a long-lasting monoclonal antibody that provides season-long protection before being discharged from hospital. They said eligible babies born before October 15th or those who miss getting their dose in the hospital can receive Beyfortus immunization from their primary care provider, and public health will help those without primary care. The province said most infants only need one dose to protect them in their first RSV season. Some children will also need a dose in their second RSV season. RSV is a common respiratory virus that can lead to severe complications, such as bronchiolitis and pneumonia, particularly in infants and older adults, the province said. These additions build on the existing RSV immunization programs for adults living in long-term care and children under 2 years of age with certain health conditions, the province said. The province added that it is investing $6.9 million in 2025-2026 to protect Nova Scotians against RSV. Thank you for watching. Please tune in again to find out what we will be talking about on The Record.